Time and time again, we hear senior leaders say they hire and promote for emotional intelligence. It's a key factor that sets high-performing individuals and high achievers aside from the rest of the crowd. Hello, I'm Dr. Gemma Lee Roberts. I'm a psychologist and author and the founder of the Mindset Matters Hub. Join over 1.5 million people who have taken this course and learn how to build strong relationships, reach ambitious performance goals, and build thriving teams by developing your emotional intelligence. Let's get started. In a working world that is fast-paced, constantly changing, and increasingly complex, emotional intelligence is one of the key skills to master. Not only will you reap rewards personally by enhancing your performance and supporting your well-being, but by developing your emotional intelligence, you'll have the ability to build strong networks and foster meaningful relationships with others. Let's start at the very beginning. What exactly do we mean by emotional intelligence, or EQ as it's sometimes described? Emotional intelligence is your ability to be aware of your emotions and triggers, and to manage your emotional responses in a way that's positive for you. There's also a social element to emotional intelligence, which is about building your social awareness to understand what's going on around you and how others may react, and then using that information to build strong relationships with others. Unlike general intelligence or personality traits, your levels of emotional intelligence can change over time, which provides you with an opportunity to develop your emotional intelligence to achieve results you want to see in your working life. If you want to improve your understanding of your emotional responses and maybe reduce stress or anxiety, work on developing your emotional intelligence. If you'd like to better manage how you respond to challenges, change, and complexity to achieve better results, emotional intelligence can help. If you're looking for a promotion and you want to build strong relationships with key stakeholders, you guessed it, work on your emotional intelligence. There are 4 quadrants of emotional intelligence: self-awareness, self-management, social awareness, and relationship management. You might notice the first half of emotional intelligence is inward facing. It's about understanding your emotional reactions and responses. I always recommend building self-awareness first. The second half is outward facing, so understanding more about others and your environment and managing relationships. What you'll learn from this process will help you to develop the skills you need to get even better at understanding others and ultimately connecting with people in a meaningful way. The great news is emotional intelligence is a skill. It's not an innate talent. This means you can learn how to take control of how you express your emotions and how to interact with others. It's just a case of learning and practicing the skills. Join me in the next video to get started. Emotions are complex. When we discuss emotions, we're referring to constructions created in our brain that explain how we feel about a specific situation. These are our feelings, and they guide how we respond to events and the actions we take. As you know, experiencing emotions can be a pleasant experience or not, and it can be intense or mild. It's important to point out that emotions feel very real to us, as real as things that we can see, touch, and hear. For the purpose of this course, think of emotions as feelings that you experience. There is so much room for variation between each of us. In the exact same situation, you may feel something completely different to me. There's also the potential for variation within us. Have you ever reacted to an event in an extreme way when you know on another day it would have only been a mild irritation for you? Our emotions have the potential to affect our behaviour and our relationships with others. In life, we'll often find ourselves in a situation. We'll have a physiological response, such as a racing heart, and an emotional response, such as fear or excitement, which can then lead to a behavioural reaction. It isn't quite so clear-cut in reality, but it's important to know your emotions can play a role in how you interpret the world and behave. To build your awareness of emotions, here's something to try. When you next face a challenging situation at work, schedule some time with yourself to reflect on the situation. This doesn't have to be straight away. You could wait for a regular reflection session that you might have booked in your diary, maybe once a week, or when you feel that your emotions have settled enough so that you can process the situation. This doesn't have to be straight away. You could wait for a regular reflection session that you might have in your diary, maybe once a week, or when you feel that your emotions have settled enough so that you can process the situation. Reflect on how you felt in the situation, and most importantly, ask yourself why. You might want to note these reflections down in a journal. Is it a particular person or a specific situation that's a trigger for you? Did you respond in your usual way, or is there something different about this situation? Can you see any patterns emerging? Is there something about the situation that taps into deeper emotions, such as anger or an insecurity within you? You don't have to change anything about your feelings. That isn't the point of building emotional intelligence. It isn't about changing who you are. Rather, it's about bringing awareness to your feelings, which over time may alter how you feel in challenging situations, or not. Either way, the invaluable insight that you gain over this self-reflection process will help you to understand yourself better, which is the cornerstone of peak performance and well-being. Right now, you're probably listening to me talk. You may also have other things going on around you. Emails popping up, people chatting, the television somewhere in the background, or a call going on somewhere near you. You'll also be processing information that relates to your body. You could be hot or cold, walking or sitting still, comfortable or not. You could also have 100 thoughts going round in your head. The point is, your brain is processing all of that information at once. It may not seem like a lot, as you're used to being able to do this unconsciously, but your brain is working hard. So we rely on cognitive shortcuts, which help us to focus on the important information and make quick decisions. This protects us from feeling overwhelmed and from finding even the most simple of decisions a crippling challenge. But sometimes our automatic information processing gets it wrong, or it gets a bit lazy. This means we might experience some of the same negative emotional triggers time and time again. Triggers are events or things that happen that cause you to feel and think in a way that isn't helpful, in a way that isn't going to achieve the best outcome from a situation. Emotional triggers cause you to interpret the situation around you in a negative way, resulting in an emotional response and then a behavioural response that isn't helpful to you, all of which can happen at the speed of light. Triggers could include a specific situation, like being late or presenting to large groups, or it could be to do with a specific person. You might feel inadequate with a colleague, or when you think of a specific family member, it might make you angry. Now it's time to pause and reflect, or jot down some notes. Consider challenges that you've faced over the last 6 months. Are there emotions that you've experienced, thoughts that you've had about the situation that have shown up again and again? You're looking for themes here, and you're being a detective, analysing your past evidence. Now, take it a step further. Are there ways your emotions or thinking patterns hijack the way that you respond to situations? In a coaching capacity, when we analyse responses, we often find the same triggers show up again and again. It might be that you get angry, or you retreat into yourself, or you become defiant or stressed. Whatever it is for you, the chances are you know that your response won't lead to the best outcome for you. Building awareness about events that are triggers will help you to build your self-awareness. When it comes to developing your emotional intelligence, you don't have to completely change the way you think or behave. There are techniques that you can use to do even more of the things that bring you satisfaction and joy by creating what psychologists call flow. So what exactly is flow? It's a concept taken from positive psychology. It's the practice of taking part in an activity that stretches your ability in some way and requires concentration. Something that you have the potential to get better at, and an activity you enjoy doing so much that time seems to stand still. Working in a state of flow will help you to reach peak performance, and it will push your abilities and develop skills to achieve more. When you're working in a state of flow, often it won't feel like work at all. You'll be taking part in activities that are interesting for you. The chances are you're good at activities that give you a sense of flow, and you can capitalise on these activities to enhance your performance, whilst also using the experience of being in flow to support your psychological well-being. Emotionally, working in a state of flow is a positive experience. You will feel like you can tackle challenges effectively. You'll feel engaged and interested, and you'll have a sense of achievement, all of which will translate to positive emotions. Working in this way will also mitigate against some of the triggers you experience that can hijack your performance, increasing your chances of reaching your potential and achieving the most favourable outcome, even in challenging situations. Take a moment now to pause and reflect. What are your flow activities? What activities challenge and stretch you in a positive way? What makes you feel so engaged that time can pass without you noticing? Finding flow in your working life can build your psychological strength by reinforcing the belief that you can tackle challenges, because after all, flow activities are challenging. These activities can also help to recharge your energy and rebuild resilience. If you're feeling confident after working in a state of flow, you're more likely to view challenges positively. Whereas if you're feeling stressed and you have a challenge to deal with on top of that, you're not so likely to react in a way that will help you to tackle the situation effectively. Finding your flow and working with flow will help you to build your emotional intelligence and positively reframe how you think about and react to challenges. As you know, your emotions can affect your thoughts and ultimately your behaviour. But how exactly can you disrupt this process? A useful model is the ABCDE model taken from cognitive behavioural coaching methodology. This model takes you through the step-by-step process you can follow to change the way that you deal with challenges and emotions to get the best out of every situation you find yourself in. Let's walk through the model, and then we can apply this to your circumstances. A is the activating event, the situation that you find yourself in. B refers to your beliefs and thoughts about the event, including your emotional responses. C relates to the consequences. What was the outcome when you responded to the event? D is a disrupting thought. How could you replace your beliefs and feelings about the event with more useful beliefs that will help you to achieve a better result? E refers to the effect or consequences of challenging your thoughts. What was the outcome of changing your beliefs, feelings, and potentially your emotions about the situation? Let's bring this to life with an example. Maybe you've had an unproductive conversation with a team member. Maybe the same thing has happened numerous times before. Ask yourself, what was the activating event? You want to be as objective as possible, which I know can be tricky because you are subjectively involved in the event. How would you describe the event if you were a reporter writing about the situation with no prior knowledge or history about the facts? So it shouldn't be Dave was rude and made the interaction awkward, because there's judgment involved in that statement. You could reframe this to Dave said the words XYZ, and I replied with the following words and detail them. Next, consider your beliefs about the event. Did you believe that Dave was rude? Did that make you react in a specific way? Did you feel the demands being made on you were unreasonable? This is where you're exploring your subjective experience of the situation. Then consider the consequences. Did your beliefs cause emotions for you, such as anger, frustration, or guilt? Did you react in a way that you wish you hadn't, or in a way that wasn't productive or damaged the relationship? Now, before you react further to the event, consider how you could disrupt this thinking. Was Dave being rude? Or was he being direct? What's going on in Dave's world? Is he under pressure to hit a deadline or a target? Or consider if there are things going on that you don't know about. Maybe Dave has an emotional or complex situation he's dealing with at home, or a sick child that's kept him up all night. Maybe the point Dave made was valid and it's hurting your ego to accept that. So how can you disrupt your beliefs? Maybe you could tell yourself, Dave isn't making a judgment about you and your work. He's making a statement, even if the message isn't delivered in the way you'd like it to be. Maybe you could change your beliefs by thinking Dave is entitled to his beliefs about you, your work, your team, but that doesn't mean they're correct, and it doesn't mean you have to react negatively. Perhaps if Dave has a point, you could tell yourself that and use that as fuel to make changes to your behaviour in the future. Then reflect on the effects of challenging your thoughts. Does it reduce your emotional response or stress? Does it mean you're not responding in a way that damages the relationship further? This is a great exercise to do periodically, and it may help you to identify common emotional hijackers and triggers. When you next find yourself in a difficult or uncomfortable situation at work, before you respond, I encourage you to pause and work through your A, B, C, D, E. Acting on emotional impulse means that you're being led by your emotions, which may or may not be useful. It depends on the situation. Of course, being passionate and excited will encourage others to be interested in what you're saying, and you might find it easier to engage with those that you're speaking with. In this scenario, you're being led by positive emotions, but the outcome won't always be so positive if you're being directed by fear or anger. The time between experiencing a thought, then a feeling, and responding to that feeling can be so quick, it can be almost hard to imagine how you can break the chain. But this is possible with practice. The trick is to choose how to react. And to do that, you need to slow down your reaction time. Step 1 is to identify when you're reacting emotionally and you feel that you could be more objective. Step 2, when you start to feel your emotions such as anger or fear, try to take a step back and give yourself some breathing space. Unless it's imperative that you react immediately, which it might be if you're in a circumstance that's urgent or you're in a crisis, take a few minutes to remove yourself from the situation and take deep, long breaths to regulate your breathing. This can be a hard habit to adopt, particularly if you feel passionately about the situation and you want to react. But taking deep, slow breaths can lower your heart rate if that has crept up, and it can regulate other physiological symptoms such as sweating or blushing. Step 3 is to give yourself time to recover. You should have had some space, even if it's just for a few minutes. Now let your body recover, and if you can manage it in the situation, don't make any decisions until you feel that your emotions have settled. Finally, choose how you will respond. You may still decide to take the exact same action that you were considering when you were in a heightened emotional state, or you may decide to take an alternative approach. The key here is you've given yourself time to consider your response, so you're more likely to achieve the best outcome for you. Breaking the link between feeling and responding takes some work and may be hard if you're feeling stressed or tired. When you start to feel the physiological effects in your body of emotions rising, if you can get some space and time to slowly choose how to interpret the information and then choose how to react, you're much more likely to achieve a positive outcome for you and for others. Do you often see things from other points of view? It can be hard when you feel passionately about something, but this gives you an advantage because you may learn something new. It also allows you to preempt how someone else may view a situation and help you to understand how best to deal with that situation. With a broader perspective, you can consider other points of view before making decisions about how to behave, which helps you to build successful and collaborative relationships. Here's how to make that happen. Rather than viewing alternative points of views as a nuisance or inconvenience, actively seek out alternative opinions and arguments to your own. You'll discover alternative ways to view situations, and considering an alternative opinion will help you to find new and innovative approaches to challenges. You don't necessarily need to change your opinion, but you will have an idea of other opinions that will help you when you're communicating your thoughts. You'll already have an idea about how others may view your opinion. Another technique is to ask more questions. Listen to what others have to say and ask how they see the world around them. As well as broadening your perspective, you'll also build a relationship with that person, which is an additional positive outcome. Spend time with new people. It's easy to get into a routine of speaking to the same people or the same kind of people, but building relationships with those outside of your normal peer group will give you insight into completely different perspectives. Read more in general and more broadly. It's critical you're always learning and expanding your horizons. If you enjoy this process, it's an easy technique to implement. But even if you're not much of a reader, even a simple routine of reading on your commute or 20 minutes before bed, or even in your lunch break, will help you to explore alternative points of view. Undoubtedly, the ability to broaden personal perspective is a common skill displayed by high-performing individuals. How developed is your perspective? Pause for a moment to think about a time you viewed a challenge from all angles before responding. What was the outcome, and what did you learn? Feel free to pause here for a moment to consider these questions. Often, taking the time to assess a situation and consider all points of view will put you in the best position to respond effectively and efficiently, achieving an outcome that you're happy with. Developing your self-awareness is essential if you want to enhance your emotional intelligence. Equally critical is building your social awareness, as this is where you focus on taking what you've learnt about how you process informations and you apply that to create collaborative and rewarding relationships. There are simple techniques that you can adopt and skills you can practice that will help you to develop your social awareness. The first place to start is with your senses, and in particular, using your senses to learn more about the world and people around you. What do you see, hear, feel? This probably sounds a bit too obvious, but you'd be surprised at how little notice we pay to our senses. They tell us about social situations, particularly in pressurized situations or if we're busy or stressed. You can challenge yourself to take part in a sensory audit, whereby you take a walk, either in the workplace setting or even outside. For 20 minutes, really focus on what you can see, hear, and feel, and even smell. If you find your mind wandering, gently bring your thoughts back to your senses. You're gathering information, learning to pay attention to the details of your surroundings, which can help you with social awareness. You can use your senses to process information about others. When you're next interacting with another person, consider what their facial expressions and body language is telling you, and listen for the tone people are using when they talk. Once you become proficient at this, you can start to piece that information together to get an idea of what people are thinking and the dynamics between people. A lot of this technique is about taking notice. Quite often, the information is there in front of us, but we're juggling so many demands, priorities, emotions, thoughts, feelings, that it can take a bit of practice to step outside of ourselves and our thoughts and immerse ourselves in our surroundings. Start with using your senses to gather information, and then use that data to inform your judgment about the best way to interact with others. Join me in the next video to find out how to take your social awareness one step further to build strong relationships. The ability to empathise with others has frequently been described as a key predictor of emotional intelligence. But what if you're someone that finds empathising difficult? As we learn more about neurodivergence, it's becoming clear in research that some people find the concept of empathy tricky. And there are some who naturally seem to have the ability to empathise, but the process consumes so much energy, they avoid empathising so they don't become emotionally overwhelmed or burnt out. So it's time to replace the focus on empathy in the workplace with a focus on understanding perspectives. There's a subtle and important difference between these. When understanding perspectives, you can acknowledge and respect the views of others without feeling their feelings in your body. This could look like taking some time to reflect on what you know about people you're interacting with and imagining how they might experience situations that you find yourselves in. You're not looking for the right answer as to what the other person is thinking or feeling. Rather, you're asking questions to find out more and imagining the possibilities of how someone may think or feel. Of course, you don't want to assume you know exactly what a situation is like for someone else. That can actually be counterproductive, as it can alienate the other person if your assumptions are incorrect. Here's a tip. Take some time before meeting with others to remind yourself you want to learn more about the other person's perspective when you're meeting. Set that intention before getting together. You can take a moment to cognitively process what you know already about the other person based on prior interactions. Another tip is to actively explore the other person's perspective when you're interacting, rather than avoiding it or just trying to get your point across. You can ask questions such as, "Tell me more about where you're coming from," or "I really want to understand your perspective on this. What am I missing?" There are two benefits to this type of interaction, especially in heated or challenging situations. Firstly, you are far more likely to understand the other person's values, objectives, and agenda by asking these questions, which will make negotiations simpler and solutions easier and quicker to find. Secondly, you're likely to build strong relationships as the other person feels that you've truly heard what they have to say and you've taken time to understand their perspective, even if you don't agree. And doesn't everyone want to be heard, acknowledged, and understood? So it's over to you. Over the next couple of weeks, challenge yourself to practice perspective reflecting. Often, when we think about communicating effectively, we consider how we can make our point and how others will interpret what it is we're communicating. But this is only half of the story. Communication involves both providing information for others and gathering information from others. The key to effective communication is listening. Yes, you will have a point of view, a message, or a point to get across. But if you want to build effective and strong relationships, you also need to really listen to messages from the other person. And that includes their words, tone, and body language. It can be easy to fall into the trap of focusing on your point, particularly if the stakes are high or if you're in a pressurized environment. But this is a missed opportunity. If you listen and interpret the other person's message, you're more likely to find a strong middle ground you can both work with, building a collaborative and respectful relationship. You're also more likely to find solutions when facing challenges, and you may discover another way of looking at the situation, which you hadn't thought of. At one point or another, we will all experience our emotions hijacking our thoughts, which makes us intent on speaking and getting what we think of as our truth out to others. But will that help you to build effective relationships? The chances are it won't. If you feel you are intent on communicating your point or your emotions are rising, remember to take a step back, pause if you can, and take the opportunity to really listen and understand the other point of view. Take some time to reflect on your communication style. Do you listen intently to others and really hear what they're saying? Are there times you listen more than others? If so, when and why? And what can you do to become a better listener? If you feel that you'd like to improve your listening skills, there are some practical ways to do this. Before heading into meetings, note to yourself what you would like to learn. This could be someone's perspective or thoughts on a particular subject, or an answer to a specific question you have. Challenge yourself to learn at least one new thing during every interaction with someone. After a meeting, take a brief moment to note down what you learned, either from the words people used or by understanding the dynamics or body language in the room. If your intention is to learn something and you know that you're going to be reflecting on this after the meeting, you'll be more likely to listen for information. We often notice what we're primed to notice. Communication should be a process of information flowing, ideally equally, between two parties, and it all starts with mastering the act of active listening before considering how to get your message across to others. One of the benefits of playing to your communication strengths and truly being yourself is that others are more likely to feel comfortable around you. They'll experience a genuine and authentic interaction with you, helping to build trust over time, which is one of the core components of strong relationships. That isn't to say there aren't times that you need to adapt your communication style. It pays to be flexible in how you engage with others in different circumstances. That comes back to being socially aware and conscious of who you're communicating with. But when you're clear on your natural communication style, you're in a better place to flex. So let's start by looking inwards at your communication strengths. Could they be communicating your message clearly and effectively? The ability to really listen to what others are saying, making people feel comfortable and heard, picking up on dynamics quickly, having a talent for making genuine and authentic connections, communicating one-to-one or leading meetings in big groups. Pause for a moment and just ask yourself the question, what am I good at? If you're unsure of where your communication strengths lie, ask others you trust for feedback on this. Sometimes others spot our strengths more effectively because strengths are familiar and hidden to ourselves. Next, consider how adaptable you are in your communication style. For example, do you change your tone if you're in a meeting with someone who's very high energy or someone that's calmer? This doesn't mean changing who you are. It means that you show different sides of your personality in different situations. The key here is to always communicate in a way that aligns with your values, in a way that feels genuine for you. You can, however, be mindful of communicating in a way where you're giving yourself the best shot of being heard and understood by the other person. Some examples could include matching energy level and tone of voice, mirroring body language, consciously showing part of your personality, perhaps sharing stories where you're comfortable to do so, matching communication styles with others. For example, focusing on facts and figures or customer experience feedback, depending on what the other person might be interested in. It is, however, incredibly important that you don't feel that you have to change who you are. You want to be able to show up in an authentic and genuine way in your work life. This process is more about being mindful of how you communicate and being adaptable with that to the extent that you feel comfortable to do so. Before heading into your next meeting or conversation, take a moment just to reflect on what you know about the other person's communication style. Then consider how your communication strengths could match their style to create a productive and effective conversation. Finally, think about how you'll flex your communication style. Ask yourself, what could you do more or less of during the conversation? It's easy to assume that working in an environment without conflict is an enjoyable and productive place to be, but often that isn't the reality. Healthy conflict at work can spark debate, helping people to consider alternative perspectives, often resulting in teams pushing the boundaries of what is achievable. Creating environments where people can respectfully challenge ideas, perspectives, and opinions creates a healthy culture. When working with others, the key is to manage conflict in a positive way, and this is where emotional intelligence comes into play. Here are some ways to use emotional intelligence to transform challenging conflict into positive conflict management. Agree on the rules of engagement with your team members. Consider how you want to engage with others, what's appropriate or not, and discuss this with the team you're working with, which I know isn't always easy to do when you're not leading the team or project. But even if you're not in a leadership position, you may be able to take the lead in this area and volunteer to create a team manifesto. You might, for example, want to decide what healthy debate means to you all as a group. Maybe it's encouraging everyone to voice their opinion and agreeing that all views are recognised. Perhaps the way that challenges occur is addressed as a team, such as words that are favourable to use and those that could trigger negative emotions. Maybe the personal element of questioning needs to be diffused, whereby it's agreed everyone in the team is there to challenge ideas, not to challenge the person delivering their ideas, minimising the need to be defensive. Create a robust support system. There's no doubt that conflict can be challenging to navigate, but it's a crucial part of the continuous improvement process. Although it's often assumed conflict can damage connection with an individual or a team, in fact, managing differences of opinion can strengthen relationships when done well. A team that rarely agrees on how to tackle challenges or which steps to take can become a strong support system for each other. The key here is respectful disagreement and ensuring everyone feels their opinions have been heard. Ultimately, a respectful debate is a healthy form of communication, and over time, that can build respect and trust. Practice plussing. The idea is if you plan to challenge an idea, you must add a constructive suggestion. So you're adding to the idea, or plus. This promotes a culture of thoughtful and constructive challenge. The tip is from Ed Catmull, the former president of Pixar Animation Studios, who discusses the concept of plussing in his book Creativity Inc. When you want to challenge an idea, consider the language you use. Try to avoid using the phrase yes, but, as this immediately comes across as opposing. It's hard for the other person who put the idea forward to be receptive of what you're saying, as they're likely to feel defensive. You could try using phrases such as yes and, communicating your ideas in a way that adds to theirs, or what if, and offer a new way that you could look at the situation. In today's workplace, we don't want to eradicate disagreements, as that can stifle creativity, productivity, and satisfaction at work. Rather, we want to create the conditions whereby conflict, challenge, and debate are conducted in a way that can help to build solid connections and relationships, and using emotional intelligence can help to support that. How you want to come across may not be how you actually come across to others. All too often, we focus on what we want to say, but the impact we make is more about how someone else perceives us and our message. Being adaptable and flexible in how you communicate with others is key, which is why it's essential you don't focus on the exact message you want to communicate, but more the intention, what you want the other person to take away from your interaction. Consider a sales manager managing a large team of sales consultants. There will be key messages everyone has to know: facts, figures, targets, codes of conduct, marketing information. Some of this will have to be documented for clarity and legal reasons, but the majority of these messages are delivered or reinforced informally. One consultant may respond to a one-to-one briefing. Another may prefer an email exchange or informal chats over a coffee. Your colleagues each have their own preferences as well. Rather than focusing on exactly what to say, before each interaction, focus on your intent. What would you like the other person to know or take away? This will make each unique interaction more focused, and you'll be adaptable enough to change your communication style depending on the circumstance. If people understand your intentions, even if the execution isn't quite right, they're more likely to listen and engage with you, and you have a greater chance of building trust, which is a critical part of managing relationships. Focusing on intent can boost your confidence, as you'll understand it doesn't matter exactly how you deliver the message. People will connect with the intent behind it. It will give you the ability to be flexible in your approach, relieving some of the pressure associated with crafting the perfect delivery. You'll also come across as natural and authentic, which is a huge bonus when connecting with people. Focusing on intent also gives you the freedom to mess up. As long as you can explain your intentions and why you delivered the message in a certain way, you have a bit more room for error. The key here is to be honest. Think about the other person's perspective, and remember, effective communication is about the message received by the other person, not the message you provided. Before you head into your next meeting, pause for a couple of minutes and get really clear on your intent for the meeting, which could be one thing you want to achieve or how you want the other person to feel after interacting with you. It's one thing learning about the concepts of emotional intelligence and another to take action to make changes in your life so that you can reach the outcomes that are important to you. That is why you need a development plan. I'll walk you through the steps so you can complete your emotional intelligence development plan as we go. Firstly, consider your vision when it comes to developing emotional intelligence. What do you want to achieve? Think about your big vision. Maybe you want to create strong relationships with a team or a particular stakeholder. Perhaps you want to work on your self-awareness and understand your emotional triggers and derailers. Maybe you want to improve your social awareness or manage your interactions in tense situations more effectively. Complete this statement. The one thing I'd like to work on is. Next up, consider your mission. Why do you want to develop in this area? The more personal here, the better. You want to get to the bottom of why this mission means something to you. Maybe developing your emotional intelligence will help you to reach a promotion and improve your financial situation for you and your family. Perhaps it will make you happier at work as conflict becomes more constructive rather than combative and upsetting. Next, note your goals, exactly what you want to accomplish. This could be a regular meeting with X, or journaling daily to understand emotions, or practicing calm breathing every day and in tense situations. Then, note your tactics. Detail exactly how you plan to reach each goal that you have set for yourself. Finally, note the measures for each tactic. For each tactic, you want to be clear that you know when you've achieved it. If you like a bit more support on your development journey, check out the Mindset Matters Hub, where I regularly share coaching tips and resources on topics such as emotional intelligence to help you thrive in work and life. So there you go. You have the tools you need to develop your emotional intelligence and the strategy to take action. Personal and professional development isn't always an easy path, but it is rewarding, and you'll be taking control of your future, putting yourself in a position to achieve the professional and personal outcomes that are important to you.